The scorching August sun bore down on Willa Cooper's neck as she clutched her battered carpetbag, staring at the weathered sign that read, "Welcome to Walla Walla, Washington Territory, 1877. 3 days by stagecoach had left her exhausted, dust-covered, and questioning every decision that had led her to this moment. Behind her lay the ashes of her former life in Chicago. Ahead lay nothing but uncertainty. The town's main street bustled with afternoon activity merchants hawking wares, cowboys tethering horses outside the saloon, children chasing a hoop down the boardwalk. Willa adjusted her simple blue calico dress, painfully aware of how out of place she must look. 22 years old and entirely alone for the first time in her life. "Miss, you look like you could use some direction," came a deep voice from behind her. Willa turned to face a tall man with sun-weathered skin and kind eyes. His Stetson cast a shadow over his face, but she could see the crinkles around his eyes that spoke of both hardship and laughter. "I'm looking for Hattie's boarding house," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "2 blocks down, right side. Can't miss it, white house with blue trim and too many rocking chairs on the porch." He tipped his hat. "Name's Nathaniel Wyatt. Most folks call me Nate." "Willa Cooper. Thank you for your help, Mr. Wyatt." His eyes lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. "New in town." "Just arrived." She shifted her carpetbag to her other hand. "Well, Miss Cooper, Walla Walla's a decent place. If you need anything, I run the livery at the edge of town." With another tip of his hat, he continued down the street, leaving Willa to watch his retreating form. That brief encounter was quickly forgotten as Willa settled into her new life. Hattie's boarding house proved to be clean and respectable, if somewhat sparse. The elderly proprietress didn't ask many questions, which suited Willa fine. Her teaching position at the town school wouldn't start until September, giving her 3 weeks to acclimate to her surroundings. On her 4th day in town, Willa ventured to Miller's General Store to purchase supplies. As she examined fabric for a new shirtwaist, the bell above the door jangled. Nathaniel Wyatt stepped inside, removing his hat as he crossed the threshold. "Miss Cooper," he acknowledged with a nod. "Settling in all right, Mr. Wyatt." "Yes, thank you." She couldn't help but notice how his presence seemed to fill the small shop. "Heard you're to be our new school teacher." Willa raised an eyebrow. "News travels quickly here." "Small town," he replied with a half-smile. "My nephew Tommy will be in your class. Bright kid but mischievous as they come. I'll keep that in mind." She returned to examining the fabric, suddenly aware of how her hands trembled slightly. Nathaniel lingered nearby, selecting items from a shelf. "Town's hosting a social this Saturday. Sort of a tradition before harvest season gets underway. Might be a good way for you to meet folks." "I'm not much for socializing, Mr. Wyatt." "All due respect, Miss Cooper, but a schoolteacher who doesn't socialize is like a fish that doesn't swim." His eyes twinkled with amusement. Despite herself, Willa smiled. "Perhaps I'll consider it." Saturday evening arrived with a perfect sunset painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Willa stood before the small mirror in her boarding house room, adjusting the pins in her upswept chestnut hair. Her best dress, a forest green that complemented her eyes, would have to do. The social was held in the town hall, a simple building that served multiple purposes for the community. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm glow over the gathered townspeople. A small band played lively tunes in the corner while children darted between the adults. Willa hovered near the entrance, observing the scene with apprehension. This was exactly the type of situation she'd hoped to avoid. Too many strangers, too many questions. "Miss Cooper." The now familiar voice came from her left. "You decided to come after all." Nathaniel Wyatt stood beside her, looking decidedly different than their previous encounters. His usual dusty workwear had been replaced by clean trousers, a white shirt, and a dark vest. His sandy hair, typically hidden beneath his hat, was neatly combed. "It seemed the proper thing to do," she replied, trying to sound casual despite her discomfort. "Allow me to introduce you around." Might make Monday easier if you've met some of the parents beforehand. Before she could decline, he had offered his arm. After a moment's hesitation, she placed her hand lightly upon it, allowing him to guide her into the crowd. The next hour passed in a blur of names and faces. Willa met the town doctor, the mayor and his wife, the blacksmith, and countless parents of her future students. To her surprise, Nathaniel remained at her side throughout, smoothing over awkward moments and deftly steering conversations when they veered toward personal inquiries about her past. "Care to dance?" he asked as the band struck up a waltz. "I'm afraid I'm not much of a dancer." "Nonsense. Everyone can dance to a waltz." He led her to the dance floor before she could protest further. His hand at her waist was respectful yet firm as he guided her through the steps. Willa found herself relaxing into the rhythm, allowing the music to sweep away her worries temporarily. "You're a natural," he commented, spinning her gently. "You're a flatterer, Mr. Wyatt." "Nate," he corrected. "We're dancing. Seems like we should be on a first-name basis, don't you think?" The waltz ended and Willa stepped back, feeling slightly breathless. "If you'll excuse me, I think I need some air." Outside, the night air felt cool against her flushed skin. Stars dotted the sky, clearer and brighter than she'd ever seen in Chicago. Willa closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. "Too much commotion in there." She turned to find Nathaniel Nate standing a respectful distance away. "I'm just not accustomed to such gatherings," she admitted. "Town this size, you'll be at the center of attention for a while. New faces don't come along often, especially pretty ones." The compliment caught her off guard. "Mr. Wyatt, Nate," he reminded her gently. "Nate, I appreciate your kindness, but I should make something clear. I came to Walla Walla for a fresh start and to focus on my teaching. I'm not looking for anything else." His expression remained neutral. "Fair enough, but everyone needs friends, Miss Cooper, even schoolteachers who aren't much for socializing." The following weeks flew by as Willa prepared for the school term. The one-room schoolhouse needed considerable cleaning and organizing. To her surprise, Nate appeared one afternoon with his toolbox and spent hours repairing broken desks, fixing the leaky roof, and reinforcing the sagging porch steps. "You didn't have to do all this," she told him as they stood outside the schoolhouse, surveying their work. "Wanted to. Besides, my nephew sits at one of those desks." He wiped sweat from his brow. "How about some lemonade at Miller's? They make it fresh." Against her better judgment, Willa agreed. They sat at a small table outside the general store, watching townsfolk pass by. For the first time since arriving in Walla Walla, she felt a sense of belonging. "What brought you out west, if you don't mind my asking?" Nate inquired, his tone casual. Willa tensed. "I prefer not to discuss my past. Everyone's got a story, Willa. Most folks who end up in territories like this are running from something or toward something." She studied his face, weighing her words carefully. "Perhaps both in my case," he nodded, not pressing further. "Well, whatever brought you here, I'm glad it did." The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip a beat. School began in September, with 28 students ranging from 6 to 16 years of age. Willa discovered she had a natural aptitude for teaching, managing the diverse age groups with firm kindness. Tommy Wyatt, Nate's 9-year-old nephew, proved every bit as mischievous as forewarned, but equally bright and eager to learn. Autumn painted the surrounding hills in brilliant hues of red and gold. Willa settled into a routine, finding unexpected contentment in her new life. She saw Nate regularly, sometimes at church on Sundays, occasionally when he delivered firewood for the schoolhouse, and most weeks when he collected Tommy after school. Their conversations remained friendly but restrained. Willa maintained the careful distance she believed necessary, even as she found herself looking forward to their brief interactions. One crisp October afternoon, as students filed out at day's end, Nate appeared at the schoolhouse door. Miss Cooper got a moment. She looked up from erasing the chalkboard. "Of course. Town's organizing a harvest festival next weekend. Food, games, dancing, the usual affairs." He twisted his hat in his hands. "I wondered if you might consider attending with me." The invitation hung between them. Willa set down the eraser, buying time to compose her thoughts. As friends, he added hastily. Just thought you might enjoy it more with some company. Something in his earnest expression broke through her carefully constructed walls. I would like that. His smile was worth the momentary panic his invitation had caused. The Harvest Festival transformed the town square into a kaleidoscope of color and activity. Children raced between hay bales, couples danced to fiddle music, and tables groaned under the weight of pies, stews, and freshly baked bread. Nate collected Willa from the boarding house, dressed in his Sunday best. She'd spent more time than she cared to admit preparing for the day, settling on a rust-colored dress that complemented the autumn surroundings. You look beautiful, he said simply when she opened the door. The festival proved more enjoyable than Willa anticipated. They sampled cider, applauded the children's sack races, and joined in a spirited square dance. As dusk approached, Nate suggested they take a walk to escape the crowds. They strolled along the edge of town, where cottonwood trees lined a small creek. The setting sun cast long shadows across their path. Thank you for today, Willa said, breaking a comfortable silence. I can't remember the last time I enjoyed myself so thoroughly. Nate smiled. You're different when you laugh, lighter somehow. Is that a compliment or an observation? Both, I reckon, he hesitated. Willa, I've been wanting to ask you something. Her heart quickened. Yes, what are you afraid of? The directness of his question startled her. I don't understand. You keep everyone at a distance. Even after 2 months here, no one knows much about you beyond your name and that you're a fine teacher. His voice remained gentle. Something's haunting you. I can see it in your eyes sometimes. Willa stopped walking. Some things are better left in the past. Maybe. But carrying secrets gets mighty heavy after a while. She looked away, focusing on the rushing water of the creek. My past is complicated, Nate. I figured as much. He touched her arm lightly. When you're ready to unburden yourself, I'm here to listen. Their walk back to town was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. November brought biting winds and the first dusting of snow. The schoolhouse stove worked overtime to keep the children warm as they practiced their arithmetic and recitations. Willa found herself watching the window more often, unconsciously looking for a familiar figure on horseback. One Friday afternoon, as the children bundled up to leave, Sheriff Mills appeared at the schoolhouse door. Miss Cooper, might I have a word? The children filed past, excitement for the weekend overshadowing their curiosity about the sheriff's presence. How can I help you, Sheriff? Willa asked once they were alone. He removed his hat, revealing graying hair. Got a telegram today asking after a Willa Cooper, formerly of Chicago. Man named James Blackwell inquiring about your whereabouts. The blood drained from Willa's face. She gripped the edge of her desk to steady herself. I take it you know this fella. The sheriff's eyes narrowed slightly. Yes. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. Should I be concerned? You in some kind of trouble, Miss Cooper? No, Sheriff, nothing like that. She forced herself to meet his gaze. Mr. Blackwell is someone from my past, someone I left Chicago to get away from. Sheriff Mills nodded slowly. I see. Well, I haven't responded yet. Thought I'd speak to you first. I would appreciate if you didn't confirm my presence here. Can't lie to an official inquiry, Miss Cooper. Of course not. Panic rose in her throat. Perhaps you could simply say you have no record of me. The sheriff considered this. Suppose that's not untrue. Strictly speaking, no formal records kept of schoolteachers. He replaced his hat. But if he shows up looking for you. Thank you, Sheriff, I understand. After he left, Willa sank into her chair, trembling. Her carefully constructed new life suddenly felt as fragile as spun glass. That evening, a knock at her boarding house door revealed Nate, concern etched across his features. Heard the sheriff paid you a visit today. Word travels fast, she said wearily. Tommy overheard. Got worried about his favorite teacher. He hesitated. May I come in? Just for a minute. Mrs. Hattie's rules about male visitors were strict, but the elderly woman had gone to visit her sister in Oregon for the week. Willa stepped aside to admit him, leaving the door ajar for propriety's sake. They sat at the small table near the window, the lamplight casting a warm glow. "Is it time to talk about what you're running from?" Nate asked gently. The weight of her secret suddenly felt unbearable. "His name is James Blackwell. In Chicago he is a powerful man. Business interests throughout the city, connections to politicians." She twisted her hands in her lap. "We were to be married." Nate's expression remained neutral, encouraging her to continue. "I discovered things about him, terrible things, the way he conducted business, the people he hurt." She swallowed hard. "When I confronted him, he showed me a side I hadn't seen before, threatened me, my family." "Did he hurt you?" Nate's voice had an edge she'd never heard before, not physically, but I realized what kind of man he truly was. Willa stared at her hands. "I broke our engagement. He didn't take it well, said I belonged to him, that I'd never escape him, so I fled. Changed my name slightly, I was Wilhelmina, not Willa, traveled west where I hoped he couldn't find me." Nate reached across the table, covering her hands with his own. "You're safe here, Willa, am I? If he's sending telegrams, he hasn't given up." Fear constricted her chest. "I should leave, go somewhere else. Running again won't solve anything." "What choice do I have?" Her voice broke. "You don't know what he's capable of, then face him." Nate's voice was firm. "If he comes, don't let him chase you away from the life you've built here." Willa shook her head. "I'm not brave enough," she whispered. The cowboy squeezed her hands gently. "You already are. It took courage to leave everything behind and start over. It takes courage to face those children every day and shape their minds." His eyes held hers. "You're one of the bravest people I know, Willa Cooper." Something in his unwavering belief kindled a spark within her. For the first time, she allowed herself to see her actions not as running away, but as fighting for her freedom. "I don't want to lose what I've found here," she admitted softly. "Then don't." The simple conviction in his voice made it sound possible. The next 2 weeks passed in tense anticipation. Willa jumped at every unfamiliar face in town. Nate made a point of stopping by the schoolhouse daily, often walking her back to the boarding house afterward. "You don't have to escort me everywhere," she protested one evening. "I know," he smiled. "Maybe I just enjoy your company." Their relationship shifted subtly. Conversations flowed more easily, lingered longer. Sometimes their hands would brush as they walked, sending warmth spreading through Willa's chest despite the winter chill. The first significant snowfall came in early December, blanketing Walla Walla in pristine white. The children were nearly unmanageable in their excitement, pressing noses against frosted window panes instead of focusing on their lessons. Willa dismissed school early, unable to compete with the allure of sledding and snowball fights. As the last child departed, she began gathering her things. The creak of the schoolhouse door made her look up. A tall figure stood silhouetted against the snowy landscape. "Hello, Wilhelmina." Ice flooded her veins at the familiar voice. James Blackwell removed his expensive hat, revealing the handsome features she'd once found charming. Now they seemed like a mask concealing something sinister. "How did you find me?" Her voice remained steady despite her racing heart. "Money opens many doors." He stepped further inside, surveying the humble schoolhouse with obvious disdain. "I must say, this is a significant downgrade from the life you could have had with me." Willa straightened her shoulders. "What do you want, James? What belongs to me?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You've had your little adventure, it's time to come home." "This is my home now," he laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "This dusty backwater, playing teacher to farmers' children, don't be absurd." He moved closer. "I've been patient, Wilhelmina." "That patience has limits." Fear threaded through her, but anger rose alongside it. "My name is Willa Cooper now, and I'm not going anywhere with you." His expression hardened. "You always were stubborn. Perhaps you need reminding of the consequences of defying me." The schoolhouse door banged open again. Nate filled the doorframe, snow dusting his shoulders. "Everything all right, Willa?" His voice was casual, but his stance was anything but. James turned, irritation flashing across his features. "This is a private conversation." Doesn't look private to me. Nate stepped inside, positioning himself between Willa and the visitor. Looks like a man bothering a lady who doesn't want his company. And who might you be? James sneered. Nathaniel Wyatt. I own the livery in town. He crossed his arms. And you'd be the fellow from Chicago, I reckon. James Blackwell. I'm Willa Minna's fiancé. Former fiancé, Willa corrected, moving to stand beside Nate. I ended our engagement months ago. A momentary lapse in judgment, one I'm willing to forgive. James's gaze shifted between them, comprehension dawning. I see. You found yourself a cowboy, how quaint. Nate's expression remained impassive. Miss Cooper has made her position clear. I suggest you respect her wishes. Or what? Will you challenge me to a duel? James's laugh was cutting. This isn't one of your dime novels, cowboy. No, but it is my town. Sheriff Mills appeared in the doorway, hand resting on his holstered pistol. Got word we had an unwelcome visitor. James's confidence faltered momentarily. I've done nothing wrong. I'm simply retrieving my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, Willa stated firmly. The sheriff nodded. Miss Cooper is a respected member of this community. If she says she wants you to leave, that's good enough for me. This is preposterous. James's face flushed with anger. Do you have any idea who I am? In Chicago, maybe somebody important, the sheriff replied coolly. Out here, just another man causing a disturbance. His hand remained near his gun. Now you can leave peacefully or you can spend the night in my jail, your choice. For a tense moment, Willa thought James might actually challenge them. Then his shoulders sagged slightly, the fight leaving him. This isn't over, Willa Minna. It is for me, she replied, finding strength in Nate's solid presence beside her. James jammed his hat back on his head, glaring at them all before storming out into the snow. I'll make sure he gets on tomorrow's stage, Sheriff Mills assured them. You all right, Miss Cooper? Yes, thank you, Sheriff. After he left, Willa released a shuddering breath, her composed facade crumbling. Nate's arms encircled her without hesitation, providing the anchor she needed. He's gone, Nate murmured against her hair. He can't hurt you now. I stood up to him, she whispered, almost disbelieving. I actually stood my ground, told you were brave. His voice carried a gentle smile. Willa pulled back slightly, looking up into his face. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. His hands moved to cup her face. But I'm mighty glad I was here all the same. The kiss that followed was gentle at first, a question being asked and answered in the same breath. Then it deepened, carrying the promise of something neither had dared hope for until now. The town's Christmas social, 2 weeks later, buzzed with gossip about the Eastern gentleman who'd been escorted onto the stagecoach by Sheriff Mills. Willa found she didn't mind being the center of attention this time, especially with Nate's hand reassuringly clasping hers as they moved through the crowd. Miss Cooper. Tommy Wyatt bounded up to them, eyes bright with excitement. Uncle Nate said I could give you your Christmas present early. He thrust a small package into her hands, crudely wrapped in brown paper and string. Why, thank you, Tommy. She unwrapped it carefully to reveal a small wooden carving of a schoolhouse, surprisingly detailed for a 9-year-old's work. Uncle Nate helped with the hard parts, Tommy admitted. But I did most of it. It's beautiful. I'll treasure it. She bent to kiss his cheek, causing him to blush furiously before running back to his friends. He worked on that for weeks, Nate said, smiling fondly after his nephew, nearly cut his finger off twice. Like uncle, like nephew, determined to a fault. She slipped her hand back into his. Speaking of gifts, I have something for you as well. She led him to a quiet corner away from curious eyes. From her pocket, she withdrew a small package. Nate unwrapped it to reveal a silver pocket watch, simple but elegant. Opening it, he found an inscription, "To Brave Beginnings, W.C." This is too fine a gift, he protested softly, not for the man who helped me find my courage. She covered his hand with hers. Not for the man I love. The words, spoken aloud for the first time, hung between them like delicate crystal. Nate's smile spread slowly across his face. Say that again. I love you, Nathaniel Wyatt. He closed the watch carefully before pulling her into his arms. And I love you, Willa Cooper. Have since you first arrived in town, looking lost and determined all at once." Their kiss was interrupted by cheerful hooting from across the room. Tommy and his friends had spotted them. "Perhaps we need somewhere more private," Willa suggested, cheeks flushing. "Perhaps we do." Nate's expression grew serious. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you." They slipped outside into the crisp night air. Stars twinkled overhead and their breath formed clouds in the cold. Nate took both her hands in his. "I know it hasn't been long by some standards, but I've never been more certain of anything." He dropped to one knee, snow soaking into his trousers. "Willa Cooper, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Joy bubbled up inside her, unexpected and overwhelming. "Are you certain my past is just that past?" He squeezed her hands. "I love you, Willa, all of you, including the parts that made you who you are today." "Then yes," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, I will marry you." They were wed on a bright spring day in April 1878. The entire town turned out for the ceremony, held in the little white church at the edge of town. Willa wore a gown of ivory lace, and Nate could scarcely take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle toward him. Tommy served as ring-bearer, puffed up with importance in his new suit. As they exchanged vows, Willa thought of how far she'd come from that frightened woman who had stepped off the stagecoach 8 months earlier. Their honeymoon was a simple week at a cabin in the Blue Mountains, borrowed from a friend of Nate's. Away from prying eyes, they discovered each other fully, their love deepening with each passing day. Returning to Walla Walla, they moved into a small house Nate had been preparing for months, close enough to both the school and the livery for convenience. Willa continued teaching, while Nate's business flourished as the town grew. A letter arrived from Chicago that summer, not from James, but from Willa's estranged sister. It spoke of James's financial ruin brought about by his obsessive pursuit of Willa. His business partners had abandoned him, tired of his distraction. The news brought not satisfaction but relief. The specter that had haunted her was finally vanquished. "Feel like I should thank him," Nate remarked when she shared the news. "If he hadn't been such a scoundrel, you might never have come west." "And I might never have found you," she agreed, settling into the circle of his arms on their front porch. In the spring of 1879, Willa gave birth to their first child, a son they named Samuel, with his father's sandy hair and his mother's determined spirit. She took a year away from teaching, but the school committee held her position, knowing a teacher of her caliber was irreplaceable. By 1884, their family had grown to include twin daughters, Elizabeth and Rebecca. Their house expanded accordingly, with Nate adding rooms as needed. Tommy, now 16, worked alongside his uncle at the livery, showing a natural aptitude for business that promised a bright future. One evening, as summer twilight lingered, Willa and Nate sat on their porch swing, watching their children chase fireflies in the yard. Samuel, at 5, was already showing signs of his father's quiet strength. The 4-year-old twins darted about like butterflies, their laughter filling the air. "Did you ever imagine this?" Nate asked, his arm around her shoulders. "When you first arrived, did you picture your life turning out this way?" Willa leaned against him, content in a way she once thought impossible. "Never. I was just trying to survive each day. Love, family, happiness, those seemed like luxuries meant for other people. And now," she smiled, watching as Samuel carefully helped Rebecca catch a firefly in her cupped hands. "Now I can't imagine any other life or any other man to share it with." Nate pressed a kiss to her temple. "Remember what I told you that day in the schoolhouse? When you said you weren't brave enough, you said I already was." Willa turned to meet his gaze. "You saw strength in me before I recognized it in myself." "No," he shook his head slightly. "I just pointed out what was already there." "You've always been the brave one, Willa. Brave enough to leave everything behind, brave enough to start over, brave enough to love again." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "I'm just the lucky fool who gets to love you for it." As darkness settled fully, they called the children inside. Later, with little ones tucked into bed and the house quiet around them, Willa stood at their bedroom window, gazing at the star-filled sky. Nate's arms encircled her from behind, and she leaned into his solid warmth. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For helping me find home." She turned in his embrace. "Not just Walla Walla, but here." She placed her hand over his heart. "With you." His kiss was as tender as the first they'd shared that snowy day in the schoolhouse, a promise kept, a future secured. In the wild territory of Washington, Willa Cooper Wyatt had found not just safety, but the courage to truly live and love without fear.